All right, guys, good afternoon. Sorry that my presentation overlapped with nap time, I think. I totally get it. We need to institute nap time. But anyway, so my name is John Stretton. I work with EDP Renewables. I've been with the company for about 2 years. I had no knowledge of Appian prior to joining the company. In fact, I was, and still am, in my heart, a mechanical engineer. So at the company, I'm part of a group of 3 people, the corporate initiatives group, responsible for process excellence and business initiatives. And what we've really been doing over the past couple years is engendering a digital transformation at the company, where, as some people at the company like to call it, we really are Appianizing the company. And so what I hope those of you here today will get from this is some insight into the journey of a longtime customer and a little bit about what we've learned along the way. And I'll definitely be available for questions after this. Anytime you can find me, I'll be here until tomorrow afternoon. So in today's presentation, I'll start by telling you a little bit more about the company, our general use case for Appian in the past and today, our approach to development, which will include a little interactive game about our use of quick apps, which we do use extensively, actually, in production. After that, we will get into a couple specific examples of business problems that we have addressed using Appian over the past couple years. One of them was a simple challenge that we were able to address in just a week, and another was a more complex challenge that took us multiple months of work to solve. And finally, we'll, as I said, wrap up with some Q&A. So EDP Renewables is a global leader in renewable energy. Around the world, we have over 10 gigawatts of installed capacity in 11 countries throughout North America, South America, and Western Europe. In the United States, we have over 5 gigawatts of installed capacity, having partnered with over 2,000 landowners to construct almost 40 wind farms, which collectively power over 1 million American homes. So I know some of you, if any of you have ever driven through the Midwest, you've probably seen those enormous wind turbines. Does anyone want to have a guess at how tall they are? We're talking the center of the hub, right? You got the spinning blades. You got the spinning blades. How tall do you think the center of that hub is? Anyone? 300. That's really close. The typical turbine has a hub height of about 80 meters, but the newer ones are getting up to closer to 100 meters, so right in the 300-foot range. Good guess. A lot of people underestimate how tall those things are. And for what it's worth, a typical wind turbine, which produces 2 megawatts of energy at its peak capacity, can power over 1,500 homes, every single one of those. So consider that next time you're driving through cornfield country, how much those things are doing. So I'll move on now to why we've used Appian. So today we use it to create quick solutions to business problems, and we've built and deployed almost 24 applications over the past couple years since I joined the company. Our primary motivations for our BPM program include connecting the company and enabling information transparency. This was a big problem that we had, where everybody was in their own silo. They had their own data set, and sometimes people were maintaining similar data sets about the same information, and lo and behold, they differed. So we want to promote transparency of that information across the company, and also to provide some structure to complex data and processes which are not easily understood by just one group, right? They might involve many different groups, and everybody's got their own skin in the game, and they want something that works the best for them, but nobody's there to consider what's best for the company as a whole. So that's another function of our BPM program. So I mentioned one of our primary goals was to connect the organization. So I'm going to tell you a little story now about how we've done that over the past 5 years. So you're going to see all of these boxes represent different departments in the company. And so when a box is lit up, that means that department has been Appianized. Okay? It means that they're managing some form of their department's internal data in Appian, or they're exposing a service of their department to the rest of the company using Appian. We'll also see some lines between boxes, which means that there's been a explicit connection, information sharing between departments in Appian. Okay, so in 2011, we started our Appian program with something you may have heard of because it was featured on the Appian website's front page for many years, called Cobra, which is used by our operations group to store solutions to turbine mechanical and electrical issues and track the investigations of those issues all the way through their closure. And we really like to brag that in the first 9 months of that program, we captured solutions to issues that were worth collectively about $100 million in potential lost revenue due to turbine downtime. So that was 2011 through 2013. We had that tool and only that tool. That was your canonical case management, which is what Appian liked to say that they were good for, and they were. Come 2014, we released a few more tools, and I'm going to be kind of rocketing through the descriptions of these tools because I could talk for hours about it. If you have any questions about any of these, feel free to come talk to me about them later. I'm happy to explain kind of what we've been up to. So we released 3 tools in 2014. One was to manage the process of supplier qualification to determine who the company would work with. Another to manage data managed by the transmission department. And another to store and track environmental health and safety issues. So that was 2014. Come 2015, I joined the company and discovered the use of the tempo environment, really. They hadn't considered that at all. And so we found a lot more uses for records, for information which was not necessarily process-backed, but just represented information that was of interest to people throughout the company. And so over the course of 2015, we developed several new tools to manage important contractual obligations, to expose the service of the procurement group to perform work in SAP on behalf of the rest of the company, to share knowledge among turbine technicians, to track multi-million-dollar RFPs for expensive turbine equipment, and one more which was used by the entire company, which I'll talk about later, to track information about work done on priority projects. So that was 2015. 2016, the whole thing lit up. We developed tools to process credit support requests of our finance group. We developed a tool to manage information about the status of analysis work on projects in development. We developed a tool to process requests for updating vendor master data in our ERP system. We developed a tool for procurement to look up past historical negotiations and terms and conditions. A tool for managing insurance claims and policy information. A tool for storing information about a checklist of things to be done when turning over a project from construction to operation. A tool for storing information about estimations of the capital expenditure required to build a wind farm, which, by the way, can sometimes exceed $200 million. A tool exposing the services of the corporate services group, so building maintenance and office reconfiguration to the rest of the company. And a tool for storing high-level details about all of our wind farms. And then finally, in 2017, so far, we've released 2 new tools, one for managing change requests to turbine software, and another which exposes services of the legal department to the entire company. So after 6 years, we've lit up the entire company in green, and this is where we stand today. The company is Appianized. And we've got almost 80% of our North American employees have active accounts, and we've seen our user satisfaction go through the roof. So the fact that a group of 3 people was able to accomplish this with really one technical resource throughout its entirety I think is a testament to our lean approach to development, and that's build, measure, learn, and repeat. So our goal really is to get minimum viable products out there and get the users testing them as soon as humanly possible. Because oftentimes we find that our effort is not better spent right away making a fancy editable grid when a simple paragraph text field would do. Because what the users are ultimately going to tell us is, oh, we need to enter different information here, or that field shouldn't be required, or things like that, right? Things which would take mere seconds to change rather than spending all of our effort on bells and whistles. And in terms of the graph on the right side, I'll talk to that a little bit. The idea is that we want our first cycle to be extremely short, and we want to get people using it. And after they've used it for some period of time, weeks usually, we come back, we make updates, and the process repeats itself until we have a finished product. And sometimes this is done after only a couple of cycles. Another approach that we take to engender our success is what we like to call rapid adoption. So in my mind, there are two different categories of applications that we can make. The first category are those that save people time just by their very nature, right? They make certain processes more efficient, and so people are generally happy to use those things. On the other hand, there are processes or there are applications where there is no obvious benefit to me, the user, but rather there's a benefit accrued to the company as a whole as a result of my use of this application. So one example, or frequent example of that is the kind of tool that's used to encourage people to write down and store information that they just like to keep in their heads for the sake of business continuity. I'll also be giving another example of this kind of application later on. And so for these kinds of applications, it's not so easy to get people to use them, and you really need to involve management. You really need to involve management and have a commitment from them to act on activity reports that you create and regularly send to them to ensure that people are using this tool because they have to be behind it. And so there's a few examples of that, and I'll talk about one later. Something else we've been doing in recent months since the release of Quick Apps is using this feature to accelerate our early development cycle, sometimes down to minutes. In fact, a lot of our applications in production that we've released over the past several months are lightly modified Quick Apps or sometimes very heavily modified Quick Apps. But I always start with them because they allow you to lay down a lot of basic functionality that's extremely useful. We're talking, an activity history of all the edits made to a particular record. I'm talking automatic creation of a record folder and an easy way to have multiple file attachments to a single record. Those kinds of things, which would normally take me quite a long time to get right if I were to do them individually every single time I make a new application. And so it really is true that sometimes the effect of Quick Apps is to take down that early development cycle from days down to sometimes minutes, and it gets us going all that much faster. So now, at this point in the presentation, I'd like to get some audience involvement, because we're going to play America's favorite game, Spot the Quick App. All right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some summary views from records that are in our system. And what I am going to need is I'm going to need you guys to identify what does not look like a Quick App. Basically, you're identifying the minor modifications that I made. Okay, so how many people in here have built a Quick App before? By a show of hands, please. Okay, not too many. So I guess we'll sort of divide the room into two teams. We got Team A, we got Team B. Okay, and so raise your hand when you know something, and I have some EDPR swag for participants. Okay, so round one. This tool was released about 9 months ago, and we've already got 1,500 records since its release. So can you spot the Quick App? What's different? And bear in mind that the differences may be also in the related actions. Anyone? Bueller? That is correct. Send email notice, not part of a Quick App. We added that. It's a pretty basic feature. So I have for you some swag. And I missed. All right, so yeah, so I added a feature that could be used to basically send someone an email with a link directly to this record. That's not a basic feature of the Quick App, but it's something that's pretty commonly used. So that's all that was in this one. So round one was simple. Round two, there's two things. So can anyone spot the Quick App? No, it is not the follow thing. This is actually, so the follow button now looks a little bit different in 17.1. I took these screenshots in 16.3. So the follow button, that wasn't it. However, thank you for participating. Here's some swag. Does anyone have any ideas? What's different? What doesn't come by default in a Quick App here? And I'll direct you again towards the related actions. Yes, sir. The drop-down. Not exactly. That's sort of just part of the Appian software. If you have more than 3 related action shortcuts in the upper right corner, it'll give you the drop-down. Although you're not wrong that by default, Quick Apps don't have more than 3 related actions. So there you go. The key really is in the related actions. So what, in this case, the quick apps don't have anything called assign to me. So in this case, we had, in this feature, we had somebody have the ability to sort of assign this request to themselves. And also send update, same idea, sending an email with a link directly to this record. So we'll change it up a little bit on this one. This one looks very different. So I think we can definitely identify some differences here. So this tool was actually just released very recently and just last month. So this is a test data. Yes? Yes, the milestone field. Definitely not part of the quick app. There you go. Have some EDPR paper clips. They're shaped like wind turbines. It's really neat. So yes, the milestone field. Anybody else? What else is different? Yes. That is correct. Start review, yeah. There's no review process. There's none of these complex processes built by default in a quick app, but you can add them. You can add them, and we did. And so you can see sort of how that works together with that milestone field. You move to review, and there's some tasks that are sent out again, not part of the quick app. Yes, Jason.
You want to go again?
Sure.
I think it's the SAP work order number. Is there an integration that you put in SAP?
No, there's no integration. Good guess, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's just a plain old number field. Again, the integration is something that might come later. That's something that comes in the 20% part of the 80-20 rule when developing new things, at least from our perspective. The last thing was that link field, that checklist template. That's not something you can configure by default in a quick app, but it took 2 seconds to add. And finally, the bonus round. So this is a new system that we use to allow users to interact with the legal department and store all sorts of related data about that legal service request. So whether that's reviewing a document, preparing a new draft, or approving it, or anything like that. So there are quite a lot of things here that are different, and I know the text might be kind of small, but can anyone spot the quick app? So this is all one interface, so you consider the thing in the background is the top half of the interface, and the inset there in the bottom right is the bottom half of the interface, because there's too much to fit on one screen. So what's different? What's not in a quick app? How about that big grid at the top? Huh? Sorry? Yeah, exactly. I'll give you one of these afterwards. They don't fly far enough. Yes, exactly. That's not part of the quick app. Anything else? Yeah. Yeah, this is a pretty heavily modified quick app, but I did start with one, and you can kind of tell because of all of these things, right? Look at the 4 record views, including an activity history. The case details section looks a lot like what's generated with a quick app, and in fact it was. I'm reusing all of those rules. Now, is anyone here? Can anyone here though tell me where I drew my inspiration for the stuff in here that doesn't look like a quick app? Because if you've ever used Appian Forum before, if you're involved in the administration of your site or anything like that, you might recognize, especially that grid at the top of the interface. Can anyone tell me what that looks like? You know the answer. It's Appian Technical Support, right? I made an Appian Technical Support case for our legal department, and they use it, and they love it. So thank you very much, Technical Support, for the unwitting help. And so that was our game of Spot the Quick App, and I'll definitely hand out some more EDPR swag to anybody who wants it at the end. So now I'd like to move on to talk about a couple specific examples of business problems that we solved using Appian over the past few years. The first one will be a simple example, and I'll give you a little bit of background. In December 2014, Congress extended a key tax credit for wind energy projects built in 2014. And they did this in December 2014. So that posed kind of a challenge. And we could claim this tax credit for projects built after 2014, so long as a number of conditions were met. But there were some circumstances where we may have had to prove in order to claim that tax credit, that we were continuously working on the project from the end of 2014 until the day it was built 3+ years later. And this was extremely important because sometimes these tax credits, for projects built a few years ago at least, could really make or break the project economics. It's not so much the case anymore, but it really was the case a few years ago. So by the end of the year, we needed a way to record and organize data about work done on these important projects for which we could potentially need to prove that we had been working on them in order to claim this tax credit. So we built a simple activity tracking tool in a week. And we rolled it out to the entire company by sending them weekly emails directing them to a simple interface for entering their activities for priority projects. We made it easy to retrieve historical entries, although I have redacted project names and replaced them with dancing Kirby's. And there's a simple report that management uses to identify gaps where entries have not been made for particular projects so that they can spot who they need to go yell at. So this is an example of the rapid adoption framework, right, where you create reports that management will commit to using to drive activity from users, but you're still sending weekly emails to users or whatever period of time you deem necessary to get them to use the tool. So you can imagine this is not a tool which directly benefits an individual user from entering that information. They're not gaining any efficiency in their workday out of it. In fact, they're losing it. But over time, the command is coming down from management that it's important that we do this, and they're committed to ensuring that it is used. On the other hand, we have a second example, which is much more complex, and which I think exemplifies both of our BPM program's motivations, which are information transparency and providing structure to complex data and processes. And this definitely exemplifies both. So when we are developing a wind farm, there are a number of talented professionals at the company that are involved in deciding which turbines to use, where to put them, where we should focus our energies on which projects. And there are a number of different analysis groups that our project managers collect information from throughout this process. And so when the company was still very young and much smaller a few years ago, it was easy enough for one of these project managers to simply go over to an analysis group and ask them for a status update on X and Y projects. But now we're working on dozens and dozens and dozens of projects at a time, and that's no longer a feasible approach. Furthermore, the process of this development is not linear. It's not first you go to this analysis group, then you go to that group, and then you get your results. It's not quite that simple. It's very ad hoc. And the company had previously tried to implement, on multiple occasions, other tools to capture this kind of information unsuccessfully. And so this posed an additional challenge to us when developing this. So what we did was we started by doing a better job organizing project information, first of all. And you might, if Appian records popped into your mind, that's exactly how it came about. And it was our use of the tempo environment that made this possible. And so we did a better job of organizing project data. And we started by creating one work queue for an analysis group that was enthusiastic about getting involved. And once people saw the benefits of this, that we could track the history of work done for each project quickly, make it easy for a project to be dropped and picked up again 6 months later without missing a beat, other groups started to get involved. And eventually we were able to come up with what's today a successful and still evolving solution. So I'll walk you through a few more screenshots about how this was actually implemented. So some of you may be in some kinds of sales organizations or anything really with external-facing customers. Well, the analogy in our business is that our projects are our customers, right? We do what we do in service of developing these projects because they are the ones that ultimately make the money for us. And when developing a wind project, one of the most important decisions you can make is to optimize the choice of turbine model that you use and where to place them. And so one option for choice of turbine model, how many, that constitutes what we call a project scenario, right? So we have a project and we have scenarios that we are considering for that project. Second piece of the puzzle is request queues for these analysis groups. So we perform many complex analyses for every scenario that we consider. And so a couple examples of those would be the capital expenditure estimation for a given project. Like I said, this can sometimes exceed $200 million. And so almost all the expense in building a wind farm comes up front, and then you recoup it over the life of the project because the fuel is free. A second type of analysis is what we call energy assessment, and they help tell us how much energy we're going to produce at this site with that given set of assumptions. You know, what kind of wind turbines we're using, how many, where we put them. And so you put those two pieces together and you get a much better picture of the economics of a project. So continuing the sales analogy, this is an example of one of those requests. Apologize, it's on 16.3. We have moved to 17.1. So it's just like making an order for a customer, right? So Amazon stores your order information. They have you stored as a customer. Well, we have here the order details, the order status in the middle, and at the bottom we're referencing the project and scenarios chosen, just like referencing an order for a customer, right? And then the results, when the analysis is done, are uploaded in the form of whatever documents in the top right corner there. And so you put all this together, and you get a hub for project information. So we have, now we can build a history of the work done for any given project for each of the scenarios that we have considered. And it can be dropped and picked up several months later because oftentimes, commercial realities dictate that we focus our energies on only these specific projects. And sometimes, in fact, just recently, we picked up a project that had been left alone for 8 years. So at the top, we have some header information about the project. Here we have, as I mentioned, the history of analysis work done for each of the scenarios. And then we also have some other related data that we have collected in other applications. So for example, the one highlighted now was the continuous efforts tracking entries. We were able to show how many entries were made in the past 4 weeks, year, or what have you. And finally, we have, this is just the summary view, but we also have related data sets that help developers or anyone who's interested answer the question, what's been done for this project? And so to sum up, our BPM program really has delivered significant value. Every year, we save hundreds of thousands of dollars in costs over purchasing commercial software, or in time savings in our workforce, and we save an even more considerable sum doing all of our development in-house. And these are relatively conservative estimates, and they really do constitute a significant ROI. And there are other non-financial benefits, like as I mentioned before, dramatically increased user satisfaction. We've been able to Appianize the company because people like it, and people ask for more, and they're still asking for more. And so I'm excited about the future of our program. I hope that I've demonstrated that we've come quite a long way in the past several years, and I look forward to talking to all of you and sharing with you any advice that you might be seeking about how to grow your own program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. We have some time. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
So, as you try to Appianize your organization, what were the challenges you faced, right? You have all these discrete systems, multiple systems that occurred, sometimes multiple duplicate storages. So how did you overcome those challenges to make sure everybody is on the same train? What were the changes you had to make?
So I think that I can attribute a lot of our success to a couple of things. One, the nature of our organization is that we're very young and adaptable. People are willing to try new things. And this is something I meant to mention earlier, the notion, right, of failing very quickly. And we've built up a reputation that if something we make doesn't work, we bounce back and we make something even better. So you build up that confidence in your organization that you can do things the right way. in terms of getting started, I would recommend that you have a dynamite business case for the first application that you make, because you have to start by building a good reputation. Right? You can't start with a giant endeavor that is maybe prone to failure just because of all the complexity involved. You can get to that eventually, but back to the nature of your original question is I think that we have employees who are tech savvy and willing to try new things. And I think that in combination with my crazy madman style of development, I think it works. Yeah. Yes?
Congratulations on all your progress. You talked about having a 3-person team. Can you speak a little bit about that team?
Yeah, so the corporate initiatives team consists of 3 people, my boss, Stefan, and 1 other person, and myself. I do 90+% of the development work, and they do a lot of engagement with the organization to help gather requirements and understand where we might play a role in some new initiative, and also in managing the political situation inside the company, because our program has now started to get a lot of attention because people like it so much and everybody wants a piece. But the truth is we have, you might say, 1.5 technical resources, and that's probably part of the reason why I'm able to develop like a madman, is because I don't have anyone to collide with. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you hadn't heard of Appian before you started there. So what's your background? What's your technical background? What's your training background? What is your background?
I'm a mechanical engineer.
But not a software developer.
No, but to be fair, I did a minor in computational math, and I've always had a soft spot for programming, and I think I'd like to think in very logical terms. And so it comes, learning an expression-based language like Sail and understanding process modeling, it came very naturally. It doesn't for everybody. But, I mean, if you have people who know how to unpack a complex Excel expression, they can learn how to make stuff in Appian. They really can. Yes? Yeah, you could say that. The technical people. You mean from IT? Yeah, IT is definitely not a big part of this at all. Appian was almost 100% a business initiative. And I hope that the approach that we would like to take is that IT stands up the application platform, but the business owns all the stuff inside. And we're hoping that we can keep that relationship, because I think that it's something that should work for everybody. Yeah?
So tell us how you finally got the legal team to come on and turn the money out.
That was a tough one. I'm guessing you've had an experience where your legal team was relatively resistant to change.
Yeah.
I think it was because of a couple of factors. The primary motivating factor, I think, was jealousy. They saw that everybody else at the company had this cool new systems, and they wanted a piece of it. But truthfully, I mean, we have our general counsel is amazing and very forward-thinking, which is nice at a renewable energy company. And they were just having so much pain. They were using a SharePoint before, and they were entering data in 5 different places, and they weren't able to track anything except by using email. And so eventually I think they just said enough, and even the most change-resistant people in legal were converted in almost instantly when they saw the new thing. Yeah. Yes.
What made you decide on Appian? What brought you to the conclusion that BPM was the answer as opposed to maybe custom building applications?
Well, given that I had no experience custom building applications and the company already had Appian, like the company bought Appian in 2011, I joined in 2015. So it was kind of foisted upon me, here's this thing we're using, go learn it. And by the way, we have some portal applications. That's all they told me. And so the decision wasn't hard once I got the hang of using Sail And I saw the power in exposing the nouns of the business as records, right? Because before in Portal with process-backed applications, you only get to worry about the verbs. But the nouns are almost secondary. And now the nouns are at the forefront, and that's what people think of, right? They think of, in our business especially, and I would hope in most others, that you think about things in terms of the nouns, in terms of the projects, the scenarios you're considering, the requests, it just made sense. It just made sense.
Also, if I could add,
Yeah.
the original use case, the original RFI was around a classic case management
Yeah.
type EPM scenario. And so that was how the relationship between Appian and EDP started. And then folks like Stefan and John, who saw the applicability of what could be done elsewhere, the program really grew from there. But in terms of why Appian initially, it was a case management solution.
What was the original POC?
It was for the turbine.
Yeah. So that was the one light that was lit up in the 2011 to 13 section when I had all the boxes there on the screen. That was they wanted to track the process of investigating mechanical and electrical issues with turbines, and store that information for posterity, so that if a technician ran into a particular problem in the field, wasn't able to solve it right away, they didn't have to reinvent the wheel. They could go look in this system to see if others had encountered a similar issue before for their particular turbine model, or one in that same family of models, or anything like that. And that was the original proof of concept, which long predated me. Yes.
Was there anything which was not implemented in Appian for this POC?
Oh, for the original POC? Well, I can't really speak too much to that because I was still in college when that happened. There's definitely other people. There's still people who are around at my company who were around for that original implementation, but I can't speak too much to what they were thinking when they made it, because right now I'm working on a replacement for it. So, yes.
So you said that you are using a lot of discrete applications. So are you using any integration platform for that, or you're just doing a point-to-point connection with Appian, like just calling a process, getting a response back, and then calling another application?
We don't use really anything in the way of integrations beyond connections to our internally hosted SQL server. We haven't really even gone down that path yet, which is, I think, a route that will be extremely fruitful when we go down it. Once we get the necessary people on board for integrating with, say, an SAP or whatever other services. We've come very far without even having to do that. I mean, we build standalone applications, and people use them and they like them. It's as simple as that. Yes, Jason.
When you think about the challenges that utilities companies in particular experience in that industry, what do you think some of the best use cases for this kind of Appian practice would be?
Specifically in utilities? Well, I'll tell you what, because a lot of the stuff that we've made is sort of back office stuff, and we haven't made a whole lot which is mission critical. And so a lot of the back office stuff, I think, is stuff which is applicable to a lot of different industries. I mean, you talk about the system that we made for requests for the centralized procurement team to do work in SAP that the rest of the company would need lots of specialized training to do. So instead, we funnel all these requests to one group who maintains that centralized knowledge, and have them, code things correctly, or know how to use SAP at all. And that's been used over 10,000 times in a couple of years in a company of 500. So those kinds of things are applicable, I think, to just about any industry. I mean, some of the only things that are specific to our industry are the thing, for example, about managing project scenarios. But that's specific to organizations that focus on development of new projects as opposed to purchasing existing projects or just operating projects. Our primary business is development of new projects, and so we've been able to build a lot of custom solutions that fit that need. But I think a lot of the stuff we do could really be applied to almost any organization. Okay.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you very much, guys.